be like one long rolling thing and we're just going to cut it all down and stuff? Okay, fine.
Can you introduce yourself first, please?
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Lucas Lowther. I'm a 67 kilogram weightlifter who lives in London. I'm a fitness professional by day, weightlifter by night. So I work in fitness influencer marketing by day. I live at home with my partner and our 2 dogs.
So what was life like growing up for you?
At certain points it was better than other points. The really good points is that I had a really good family around me, really good close friends around me, especially when I was coming to terms with my sexuality myself. There were rough points. Growing up, I didn't think that I was any different from anyone else until I started to then overcome obstacles of meeting different people who may not have been as accepting about my sexuality as the people I'd surrounded myself with growing up. So it definitely had challenges, but I definitely had a really good family around me and friends that accepted me and loved me for who I am, and it made a massive difference, but then also made the really tough times when I would meet people who weren't as accepting even harder, because I wasn't as braced for any negativity for being who I am.
Were you involved in sports growing up?
So I'd always done sports without knowing that I'd done sports. I remember I was at school and I was probably the naughtiest kid ever. I was always suspended, always kicked out of classes, and I think that was to do with me coming to terms with my sexuality and standing out a little bit more in school and hiding who I essentially was. And I remember I was put into work experience at a dog kennels, and I was like, why am I doing this? And I got into horse riding, and it was more of a passion and a hobby, so I never saw it as a sport because I was always just doing it and being out and about and then being active. And then after that, I was then involved in just going to a normal gym, but not having a clue what I was doing or knowing anything about fitness itself. So ever since I was like 14, 15, I'd always done sport without knowing that I was doing sport, if that makes sense.
How did you get involved in weightlifting?
So I remember I was in a global gym and I'd just moved into London, and I lived that lifestyle. I was going out 3-4 times a week, like non-stop partying, and I was part of a normal global gym chain. And I remember seeing this guy doing a snatch on a platform, and I thought, oh wow, that would look so good on Instagram if I could do that. And I saw it and I went up to him and I said, what is it you're doing? He was like, oh, it's called Olympic weightlifting. And I was like, can you teach me? And then I remember him asking me over Instagram, like, why do you specifically want to learn this? And I didn't have a clue what it was. So I just went on Google and I said, what's the benefits of Olympic weightlifting? And I literally copy and paste that and sent it across to him. And he was like, okay, I'll teach you. And I just got into it from there. And then he literally said to me one day, like after about 4 weeks, he was like, you should go try CrossFit. Like, you'll do so well in CrossFit. And I was like, okay, fine. So I went to CrossFit thinking it was just Olympic weightlifting, because I didn't know what CrossFit was either. So I had a heart attack when I walked in, and it was the complete opposite to what I thought it was going to be. And then as I got better and better into CrossFit, I realized that I actually had a strong potential to be a good athlete at my body weight for what I could lift, as I got more stronger and more aware of what Olympic weightlifting was and how to do it, and educating myself how to do it. So ever since then, for the last 5 years, I've kind of made now weightlifting my sole and only focus to try and be the best athlete that I can be.
The following information is from Sport England. With support from Public Health England, a survey of nearly 1,000 LGBT people living in England was undertaken, asking both about sport participation and other physical activity. Key findings of the survey include the following. 55% of LGBT men were not active enough to maintain good health, compared to 33% of men in general population. 56% of LGBT women were not active enough to maintain good health, compared to 45% of women in the general population. 64% of LGBT people who identified as something other than male or female, e.g. gender fluid or genderqueer, were not active enough to maintain good health. What we also understand from existing research with the LGBT community in the UK is that homophobia, biphobia and transphobia in sport is still extremely prevalent, and significant barriers to participation persist.
Sport England has reported lower levels of sport participation within the LGBTQ community. Why do you think this is?
I think there's loads of different reasons for every different reason being so different, if that makes sense. So a lot more people, one, they don't lead by their sexuality and who they are anymore, because it shouldn't define who you are as a person, for who you love and who you want to be and who you support. So people do choose to keep it to themselves and not publicly make it aware. Other reasons, because when they are asked these questions, they are shy of themselves, to not put themselves in a comfortable position to be able to openly discuss and talk about it. When people are asked, like on questions or surveys or interviews, like what sexuality they are, what they are, they think automatically it's going to be a negative thing. So they'll shy away from entering that, thinking that they're going to be negatively detrimented by who they love and what they are. And it could be that they're still not to terms with it themselves. So the last thing they want is a question labelled in front of them saying, are you gay, are you bisexual, are you transgender? And that question automatically puts people back in on themselves because they don't want to openly admit it to themselves.
Have you come up against any barriers in the weightlifting community?
Maybe not in the weightlifting community itself, but in certain gyms and in certain places. Like if I take, for example, there's two different examples that I'll always think about here. The first one was, I remember I celebrated my first ever 100 clean and jerk, and I celebrated and I was my flamboyant, normal camp self. And someone come up to me literally after, without even saying like well done or anything, being such a milestone for me personally. They said, oh, for a gay person, you're very strong. And I'm sitting there thinking, all because I love someone different and what you are, that doesn't define that my strength is any different or any better or any worse than yours, for example. So it's like little comments of uneducated people's awareness of what they're saying. And then the second example would be, I had a coach once and they outright asked me if I was gay. And I said, yes, I'm very open, very honest about it at this point in my life. And they said, oh, if anyone gives you any make them tell them my name, or I'll like deal with them personally. And I sat there and thought, people still think like when I talk about being gay or someone being gay or being who you are, that it's going to cause a negative impact from other people. So essentially they're thinking that all because you're gay or bisexual or who you are, that there's going to be negative impact from people. That's not the case. People celebrate so many different diverse cultures and love and who you are, and so much more accepting now that it's not a negative thing to talk about who you are, what you are, and it should be a proud thing, and it shouldn't even be a question that's being asked, because why does it matter?
Lastly, do you have any advice for any young LGBTQ aspiring athletes?
I think don't let your sexuality or who you are and who you love and what you do in your personal time like defer from your goals and your ambition and who you want to be in life. It's not relevant, and it doesn't make any difference to where you're going to go and where you could be. The only thing I'd say is that surround yourself with the right people, the people that you see day in, day out, that will hold you accountable. Like they're the people that matter, and who you let into your circle, they're the people that you'll love and they'll help you flourish. They won't bring any negativity to you. If they do, just wipe them out. They're not needed.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for yours.